past, I've been down, cause failing's not an option, and dad is not a noun, not at all.
My message to any dad, man, first off, know that, yeah, it is a hard job, but it's the greatest job in the world. I wouldn't trade it for anything. I wouldn't change anything about it. Everything you're doing from here on out, if it didn't have purpose before, now it has purpose. It's the most important thing you'll ever do. Just be a dad.
To another episode of Dad is Not a Noun. My name is Ishmael, changing the narrative for men of color fatherhood, as well as changing the narrative on the things I care about. Before I get into the intro, I want to thank the Real Dads Network for honoring me with the Media Award. This means a lot to me. I started this 4 years ago, the Dad is Not a Noun podcast, and 4 years later to be honored by Black fathers for the work I do. This means a lot. And I told them at the award show that it's never been about me. It's about the mission of highlighting amazing dads of color. And I will continue to do that. And I want to thank, the Real Dads Network for this amazing award. Thank you so much. Hopefully I'll get more awards in the future. But if I only get one, this means so much to me because it comes from Black fathers. So again, thank you again. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. It was an amazing award show. Oh, it was a beautiful award show. And again, I want to thank you for this award. And now, I'm going to get into the intro right now. This is a great conversation I had with my brother of over 20 years, Mr. Magic, the co-founder of Jeek Nation podcast. Again, if you love that mixture of sports, wrestling, video games, animation, you want to tap into that world. I recommend you guys check it out. I'll have the link in the description below. But in this conversation, we talked about the U.S. basketball team because just recently they just almost lost to Sudan. But I posed a question to him that do he believe the 92 Olympic team hurt the development of future basketball players? And I made the case to him that that 92 team was the dominant team. But what me personally, I felt like that what hurt the development of future players down the road was instead of showing like the team aspect, they just showed the highlights. And so because of that, I do believe that hurt future development of players, because nowadays is all about the highlights than the basic principles of the game. And as well as it forced other countries to develop their players. And you see it now that the rest of the world has caught up to the players in the NBA. And so I hope you guys enjoy the conversation. Like, subscribe, share, and I'll see you on the next episode of That Is Not a Noun podcast. Love you guys. Peace.
Yes, everything you said is true. That's all facts. Actually, the Dream Team's biggest thing is we wanted to show the world that we were invincible and to really rub it in their faces that, like, look, you screwed us over. We're still pissed about it. And you need to realize we've been taking it easy on you by sending you our college kids because this is what the real people can do. Right. And the rest of the world got a wake-up call that said, wow, okay, like, we really think about this. Okay, so anybody that knows NBA, the 90s basketball, early 2000s, or should be familiar with Tony Kukoc.
Yes.
Tony Kukoc, during this time frame, was the best non-American basketball player in the world.
Right.
Coming out of Croatia.
Facts.
Draft pick of the Bulls.
Right, but before you finish that, I think the best international player, I know we talked about it before we got on, was Sabonis. But go ahead.
But at that time, Sabonis is a better player. But at that point of time, in 92, he wasn't better than Kukoc. And that's because his knees were gone by that time.
Yes.
If Sabonis had played in the 80s like he was supposed to, I said this offline. I think I've said this on my show before. He would have been the third best center in the NBA in the 80s. A healthy, young Arvydas Sabonis was that good.
Yes.
But at this point in time, Tony Kukoc is the best player that's not from the United States in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And Michael and Scotty were, and if you haven't watched Last Dance and you're a basketball fan, I don't know why, but watch The Last Dance, because Michael and Scotty talk about this and the fact that they took it personal. So you have to understand, especially coming out of a Cold War country and such, like, we're Americans. Okay. We don't like people encroaching on anything that we consider ours. Yes. And basketball is ours. I mean, it's a game that created here. It's our game.
Yes. We
don't like people encroaching on that. And Jerry Krause, being the person he was, not that Jerry was bad at his job. It's that Jerry was not, in my personal opinion, obviously someone looking from 2,000 miles outside. I just don't think Jerry was very good as far as tactfully trying to build and continue the strengths of Chicago Bulls. So the way he went about things was not the best. And that's including, drafting Tony Kukoc, which they felt that, because he was touting Tony as the future while Michael and Scotty were still in their prime and starting to win championships. So, it's a slap in the face when the guy is saying this guy's going to be the future, and in the present can't get any better because you're two-time champions. So Michael and Scotty decided to take it upon themselves to defensively clamp upon Tony Kukoc and embarrass him, and that's exactly what they did. And they showed the world that the best non-American player had very little chance of being close to that level in the NBA against NBA players. And Kukoc shouldn't have a bad career, and he was a good player. But throughout his career, he was never a top guy. He was never a number one option. He wasn't good enough. Now we're at a point where we have a proliferation of international stars, because we're talking about over 30 years since the Dream Team, and we've got young kids who grew up watching and playing basketball compared to kids like Kukoc who grew up playing soccer and converted to basketball in middle school or high school. You've got kids like Jokic and Porzingis and Giannis and other players who grew up their entire lives playing it. Before, your international stars were all kids who played soccer and discovered, generally in high school, Mutombo, Olajuwon, Steve Nash, even like the other Croatian guys or the Lithuanian guys like Sarunas Maršalunas and such. Like most of these players, you hear their story and they all say, "Yeah, I started playing basketball in middle school or high school, and found out I was naturally good at it, and was able to be good and make my national team and make the NBA." Most of them, 90% of them, none of them said I played basketball my whole life. It just wasn't a thing. Wow. They played the most popular game, which was soccer. So, I usually refer to as football because that's really what it is. Mm. So now it's completely different. And at that time in the 90s, you got to also realize that European players were considered soft. Yes. The early 90s was coming out of the hard hitting 80s. And compared to Americans, they were soft. Now that pendulum has shifted. The European, international play, particularly Europe, they are kind of in their leagues are kind of in their 90s era, not as hard hitting as the NBA 80s, but they're kind of in their 90s era. It's a rougher, tougher, more defensive focused game, where and the push by the NBA was to be more like the Europeans, be more finesse driven, not as physical, They got rid of the goon. They got rid of the enforcer type guys, the Rick Mahorns, the Michael Cages, the Charles Oakleys, the Anthony Masons.
Yeah.
The tough guys. The Felton Spencers. Your guys that went out there and did your dirty work.
Right.
It's not that they weren't skilled, but they were guys who were willing to do the dirty work, protect your stars.
I think one of the things too, bro. Just to apologize for cutting you. It's the hand check. Like when I think about the hand check, I think of Derek Harper.
Oh yeah, Derek Harper and those big hands just moving you where he wanted you to go.
Yes. Got both of happiness, bro.
Yeah, so that helped. But part of it was just the environment that the NBA wanted to cultivate. They wanted it to be more appealing for Europeans to come here. They wanted to increase scoring, and they wanted to play a softer game. So right now, we started emulating more of European basketball, where international basketball started emulating more of American basketball. So the pendulum has shifted. So where there's more talent overseas now than there used to be. Not as much as here, but there's a lot more talent. And the closer you are in relation to the United States, the stronger. So a lot of the players have been, particularly our neighbor to the north in Canada, where so many Canadian players have gotten, become great players, top picks, going to American colleges and playing ball. The R.J. Barretts, the Jamal Murrays, the Shea Gilgeous Alexanders, these top Canadian players, the Dylan Brooks, out of Oregon. Kentucky's, grabbed multiple of these guys. So, and in Duke as well. So all these, all this Canadian talent, Kelly Olynyk out of Gonzaga, like all this Canadian talent is playing ball in the United States. Some of them have been coming to the United States and playing high school ball. So it's also helping them in being around American players, but they're really close. You're across the pond people, some of them are better, are gotten better, but they're not as much as in mass as Canada has. But again, France has gotten better. They have multiple NBA players where before they had like one. Spain, same. They have a couple NBA players where before they had none. The Gasol brothers really the Gasol brothers, Rudy Fernandez, Ricky Rubio, they gave us a scare in 08. Like they were really good. They had really Andres is from Argentina. And people forget Argentina beat us with Ginobili as their main star, who was in the NBA, but they had guys who end up playing in the NBA on that Argentinian squad, South American squad. They had Andres Nocioni, they had Walter Herman, they had Luis Scola, 4 players who all ended up playing multiple years in the NBA on that Argentinian squad. So the increase, and that's 04, 20 years ago. So the increase of talent started to shift as the focus on international ball increased. And again, they were playing more defensive style focused basketball while we were getting softer. And we're at a point where we're super soft. They're still playing a tougher brand of basketball, and it is making American players not look as good. So we're at a point right now where a lot of people who are doing this, the talking heads, the Chris Broussards, and no shade to any of these guys except for Nick Wright and Skip Bayless, but the Rob Parkers, the Chris Broussards, the Nick Wrights, the Skip Baylesses, Shannon, Stephen A's, they're all talking about this may be the last year that we have a team that really is going to be, everyone looks at it and like, oh yeah, the United States is going to win. After that, they think it's going to be a lot more balanced. I kind of disagree with that. I think only because I believe one, the talent pool is still overwhelmingly in the United States' favor, but also I believe that the shift is going to start shifting back towards more defense. Fans exhibited, especially this year, a lack of. It's not a lack of, but fans, I believe, I saw fans exhibiting a displeasure with the product and the hyper focus on scoring and just the flat out ignoring of carries and travels, and just a lack of overall general defense. Luka Doncic, and nothing personal against Luka, he's touted as one of the best players in the NBA. I disagree because personally, if you're not a two-way player, you can't be one of the best players in the league. And nothing personal against Luka, but he's a traffic cone.
Right.
And I talked about this on my show a couple episodes ago, or my most recent episode. Shout out to our mutual friend Greg Burnham for talking hoops with me. But these guys, they're not sliding on defense. They're not trying to ride. If the guy even gets half a step on them, they're not riding the offensive player into defensive help. Like, that's just, the defense is abysmal, and people are starting to see it and starting to get tired of it, especially as the WNBA continues to get more popular.
Right.
The WNBA is they're in their early 90s era. They're playing rougher, tougher basketball, defensive focused. These ladies ain't taking no crap from nobody, and they are playing more of the way the NBA was in the 90s. And people are enjoying it. And I think that actually may also continue to push the NBA back towards more where the gameplay was in the late 80s, early 90s, where people are really focusing on trying to score, but also putting a focus onto defense and not just letting players blow by, and and just having a more balanced game. And I think that needs to be the focus. I know it's an entertainment league. I know it's about making money, but you really need to keep the element of competition alive. And if everybody's just blowing by everybody and taking layups and jacking them threes, the element of competition it's not there. The fire's not there, and the fire can be there when no one's really trying to stop anybody defensively. So the rest of the world is catching up in some ways, and you've got definitely more talent. I just can't blame the 92 Dream Team for the instant gratification and the mixtape, highlight culture. That I blame more on the AEU, ESPN, and the NBA itself for focusing on the entertainment portion so much more than keeping a balance with the competition side of the game. The Dream Team is, to me, the 92 Dream Team especially, extremely positive, and had just made the world better, the basketball world a better place. Now I'm so excited for this year's Olympics because France has a good squad.
Canada has a great squad.
Canada has a really good squad. The Australians have a good squad. Giannis finally got, his first time he punched his ticket. He's finally going to be competing in the Olympics for Greece. Mm-hmm. There's 5-6 teams that have NBA players on them that it's gonna make pool play. Generally pool play was not that fun to watch until you started to get down to the last final teams and then seeing who's going to win, the gold. Pool play is going to be exciting, regardless of what, before it'd be like, oh, France is playing, whatever, ho-hum, who cares? No, almost every pool play game is going to be a game worth watching. So I am super excited for what the Olympics are going to look like. And even though I believe the United States should win, I'm not going to say very easily, but should win, shouldn't have too much trouble winning. We're not invincible. I don't think 2004 is going to happen again, but a lot of our players are old. Bron, Steph, 36, KD's 36, Thron's 39, almost 40. Mm-hmm. We got a lot of old dudes. Kawhi dropped out because you can't depend on him anyway. But we got a bunch of aging dudes on this team. We have enough youth, I think, that between Ant and Book and Tatum, that will be fine. But we've got injury-prone people, Joel, and we've got old players, and we're not invincible. We should win, but we're not invincible. So I'm looking forward to seeing highly competitive, good basketball. and I think we're going to see I do think Canada. I'm feeling Canada might get upset, and we see a France USA title game. That's my fierce prediction. I think Canada's they should be in the title gold medal game against the United States, but I just have a feeling that they're going to get upset.
No, and I feel you on that. But what I worry about that, like we talked about before we recorded, is that the problem with the Olympic team is that we haven't harvested the next generation of the next players.
Well, see, Mike, I can't. But you can't. I wouldn't say that because, like,
you don't think that?
No,
because the reason why I say that, bro. Before I'll let you talk.
I'm sorry. Go. Yeah, my bad.
That when you think about it, like what I miss about the college players playing is that you can kind of figure out who's going to be that dude in the NBA. Like, for example, like when Jordan played for the Olympic team, you're like, all right, Jordan's going to be that dude. Or even Bird, when he was playing with the Olympic team, you're like, or Magic, you're like, that dude's going to be that dude. And unfortunately, nowadays, when it comes to college players, we don't know who's going to be that dude because. But I'm gonna let you get at it.
Okay, well, so I would counter that and saying with the college players, you never really knew who was going to be that dude unless you had a special player on that team, like Jordan, like David Robinson or whatever. There was a lot of balance on those college teams.
Yes.
So you really, 1 year Quinn Buckner was the best player on the team. I think that was the year we got screwed in '76. There was a lot of balance there. The parity, really wasn't a problem. I would say the thing for the United States right now is the fact that until Jerry Colangelo really started making it into a program, it was getting people together. They practiced for 2 weeks, and then you roll the balls out and say, go win a gold medal. Yeah. And when you are playing against even teams with less talent, but teams that really won it, but there are guys that have been playing together for years, like that Spain team in 2008. All those guys between Pau Gasol, Marc Gasol, Rudy, Ricky Rubio, like a lot of those guys have been playing together as a team since they were kids. They were national team members for years. So even though they weren't always playing together, they knew each other extremely well. Where a lot of these NBA guys, most of them are not teammates. So even though they're on the same team, they've only been teammates for a max like 3 weeks. They don't have the chemistry. They're not accustomed to playing with each other. The only time they really get to play with each other is in the All-Star games, and that's even maybe half of them because one conference is on one side and one conference is on the other side. Unless you're switching conferences, you really, you're not playing with everybody. So it's still, you still have this learning curve of learning each other and learning each other's games and your nuances and such, where chemistry plays a really, really big role in how far and deep your team can go. So to me, if the United States wants to revert back to college, you really need to focus on the program portion. You need to put your Olympic team together a year or two beforehand, and then in the summertime, have them start to become a team. And the Colangelo started to do that by putting the national team together ahead of time and saying, these are the guys that we're going to, looking to go with. I don't know why they kind of diverted from that. And also picking more role player type guys. There's a couple right now, but, that 08 team had, Tayshaun Prince and, Darren Williams who was starting to be on. He was still good, but he was starting to kind of decline. Michael Redd, on his decline, but still really good. You had glue guys. You had guys that were there because they're good basketball players and they fit within the team concept. This year's team has a whole bunch of stars, and I personally think that it's better to put a team out there that will fit together better, more than just throwing every star we have onto a roster, because you need those guys who are just there to win. And not there for extra shine or extra deals and extra advertising dollars and extra opportunities. They're there simply to win Olympic gold. So I think if we went to college, I don't think honestly it would be that bad, but I would prefer to just to keep the pros, have the pros gel a little earlier prior to the Olympics, 2 years before, have them start working out together. They spend a light month during their off season, together, just building chemistry and such. And obviously that Olympic year, it gets a little bit more intense for those. If anybody in the team is in the finals, obviously they come when they can. And then that way you've got chemistry, you've got plan, you've got a team that's built. It's not just a collection of all-stars. And then you can go out and handle business the way you need to handle business. Because in my opinion, Jason Tatum, he'll still be, young. Jaylen Brown will still be young, in 4 years. There's plenty of American talent. Cooper Flagg is going to be a grown man then. You're going to have so much talent that's coming up, Bryce James. Like, look, everyone's talking about Bronny. I think Bryce is going to be the truth of the James kids. 4 years, Bryce James is going to be 19 years old, I think, something like. No, he will be able to. 2 years, he'd be able to. He might be 20. Bryce James is going to be a beast, and he's got the height that his brother doesn't. He keeps developing. Watch out. So I really think that the up and coming talent is. I think it's going to be fine. I really do. I'm not worried about what the United States is bringing forth talent wise, for the future, and the NBA players. If we keep sending NBA players, I think we'll still be good, because even though we have Jokic, Giannis, there's plenty of American stars still that are readily available to be put on the American team. And just think about this. Just think about the fact that the Bahamian team has Eric Gordon, Klay Thompson, Buddy Hield, DeAndre Ayton. That's a starting NBA team right there, and none of them are good enough, or playing good enough, or good enough really to make the Olympic team. We're fine. We're gonna be fine.
No, and I feel you on that, but what I worry about that is that, well, like what we talked about earlier, when you talk about the development of the future of the superstars in the league, is that I don't see that. Like, there's a like what you alluded to earlier, that you see, a depletion of when you come to the AAU and the development of teaching the future of the basic skills of the NBA, the ABCs of the game.
No, I mean, and that is a concern, but I don't think that is a concern for the Olympic team, only because the best of the best are going to be the ones that are on that team.
But so that's the one thing too. Is like, how do you disseminate? How do you figure out who's the best of the best?
Well, that's on that's Grant Hill and them, the people that are running the program. So I trust Grant Hill. I trust whoever the coaching staff is to assemble the best team. And Grant Hill, and God, I hate saying this because I detest Duke, but Duke has always been a team first team, and a team first mentality. Wow. So I have all the confidence in the world that Grant Hill at the helm will continue to push USA basketball in a team first environment, and make sure that the people on that team have the requisite skills, and not be players that are me first, showmanship first. He's gonna put the best of the best out there. Like I said, we're gonna be perfectly fine. There's talent that's up and coming that people really everyone's getting so enamored with the international players. Look, some of these international players they're good, some of these international players are flash in the pans. Looking at you, Ben Simmons,
Mhm.
you know, and that's players. Period. Players, not everybody has the same lasting longevity. But I would not worry about USA basketball. I don't think, yes, some of these other countries are getting better, and I think that's better for basketball. But overwhelmingly, the town is still the United States. It's overwhelmingly still the majority of the town is here.
And I appreciate you're optimistic about that, but I kind of, like I said, I worry about that too, because again, when you talk about the NBA, at this moment, like when you talk about the face of the NBA, and there's nothing wrong with it, is that the face of the NBA when LeBron James retired, or whenever he decides to retire, going to be Giannis, and Joker. That's going to be the face of the NBA.
I do. I see. I don't even think so though.
No. Okay.
No. Honestly, I think the faces league will be younger.
Okay.
I think they're propping Anthony Edwards to become one of the new faces of the league.
Mm-hmm.
They're going younger. As good as Giannis and Joker doesn't want it. That's not who he is. He doesn't have the personality for it. Every offseason, he wants to go back home to Serbia, be with his animals and his farm. Like, that's just not who he is.
Right.
And Giannis, even though he's still really good, he's, his prime is probably, this year was probably the last year of his prime. He's going to start to decline now.
Yeah.
He's at that age. So your younger talent, Shea is, he's coming up, the young Canadian, but Anthony Edwards, Shea and Edwards, those are the guys. Those are some of the guys that are going to start really being propped up as the new faces of the league. Obviously, they're doing it with Luka. I don't know how long Luka will last because unless Luka really makes some changes on his game defensively, stops being as ball dominant as he is, and he's going to have a tough time staying that highly ranked, in my opinion, because these young cats are coming. Shea should have been the MVP this year. I think the Timberwolves are continuing to be good, and I think Ant's going to add more, especially if he plays well this Olympics. I think he's going to come out of the Olympics like, no one can stop me in the world. I think Ant's going to have a monster year next year. He already had a monster year this year. There's going to be some shaking up of who the big dogs are in the league. The old guard's starting to fall off. It's what happens. We need to appreciate the greatest that we saw in LeBron and the greatest in KD and Steph, and all these guys are now in their mid to late 30s that are don't have a whole lot of basketball left in them, unfortunately. And we got to really start looking at who these new stars are going to be. And I think Shea and Ant are the two that are propped right now to really be faces of the NBA. You got guys that are going to be, like the Jalen Brunsons, they're going to put some shine on them because of where they play. And, the big in those markets. But those are the two guys, in my opinion, that are really the spotlight are going to really be shining on.
And before we end this dope conversation, because with this conversation, we just jumped into different. And
your boys got to go to bed.
You know what I'm saying? But what are your thoughts about LeBron James?
My thoughts are, as they've always been, I have zero qualm with Bronny James. I've been rooting for Bronny James, the best for him, just like I rooted for the best for. I'm rooting for the best for Bryce and for anybody's kid. Like, why would I want to see anybody's kids fail? And even if I do or don't like your parent, like in the case of the Ball brothers, I don't like LeVar Ball. I don't like. It's not that I don't like him promoting his kids and wanting the best for his kids. LeVar Ball put a target on his kids' backs, and LeBron put a target on his kids' back. When you start talking about your kid's better than Steph Curry, LeVar, when you talk about your kid is better than half of the NBA, LeBron, you put a target on your kid's back. Your kid doesn't need any bigger targets on their back than it's already there. You make it harder for your kid to succeed when you put a target on their back. They were going to come for your kid anyway. Now they're really going to come for your kid. And that doesn't help your kid any. That just don't make things harder on the kid that has to work hard and earn it anyway. Bronny is not really naturally, he's not his dad. He doesn't have the athletic gifts that his dad has. The Ball brothers, none of them are super athletically gifted. Nothing that super stands out that helps separate them. They had to get there by working on their game. It's not God-given gifts. And when you go out there and you run your mouth to promote your kid and do negatively, that makes it harder. And the scrutiny on Bronny was going to be hard enough because he's LeBron's kid, but now it's even more so. Getting drafted, after the year he had with the health scare, not playing as much, not having really big numbers, and then you give him a 4-year deal, which no 55th pick gets. You're showing clear cases of nepotism, towards Bronny, which again does not help. That puts a bigger target on his back. Even if you want to give the kid a guaranteed contract, which is rare but not unheard of for second-round picks,
Yes.
make it a 2-year deal. Why making it 4 years is like it's a slap in the face to the rest of the league, and they know it, and they're going to come for your kid. Like everybody on that summer league team is fighting for a job, and they want your kid's spot. They want to be the one on Lakers roster. They want your kid in the G League. Like they're coming for him. And any other player on the opposite side, they know if they do something against your kid, it's going to be on ESPN. It's going to become a highlight because of the spotlight that's on your kid. So they're coming for your kid in every way. They're going to try to lock him down. They're going to try to embarrass him. And I don't, he didn't need that extra pressure. He didn't need that extra spotlight on him. So I wish them the best. I sincerely do. Is there nepotism involved? Absolutely. Is that unique in sports? It's unique in the player son aspect, yes, but it's not unique in sports because it happens in the front office stuff all the time. But obviously that's different as compared to on the field, of play. But I wish nothing but the best for Bronny. And I think there's no shame for Bronny if he doesn't make it in the NBA and he goes overseas and has a 15-year career and makes plenty of money playing overseas. Great. If he only makes it in the league for 3-4 years and plays overseas, great. I just want the best for the kid. Like I have zero qualms about him. I just want him to be as successful as he possibly can. And if it means a short NBA career, cool. If it means he's an NBA journeyman and he lasts 15 years and never averages, I don't think LeBron James Jr. would be a failure if he ended up having so let's see, what's a good, if he had
I'm thinking like when you talk about Brownie, if he has a career of like, for example,
I got the perfect person.
Okay, go for it, bro.
If LeBron James Jr. has a NBA career like a James Posey, like a Trenton Hassel, someone who you depend upon, to be there, good role player, great in the locker room, people love him. If he has a Udonis Haslem type career, that's a success. You don't have to be. He doesn't have to be the star. He doesn't have to put up 20 and 10.
Right.
He just needs to be useful and stick around, and which is what most NBA players really should be shooting for, because only the upper echelon get to be that dude. If you're in the league, you need to be able to push and fight to try to have that Udonis Haslem type career. So if he has that, more power to Bronny. That's a success, and I hope for that and better for him. I really do.
Definitely agree with that 100%. Because the players that I was thinking about was one, Vashawn Leonard.
Okay.
Miami Heat.
Yeah, Detroit's own Vashawn Leonard.
And then also, I'm probably getting his name wrong. what's his name? Anthony Carter from the Nuggets. If he
Yeah, I
had
remember. Yeah, yeah,
right there,
Anthony Carter. Yeah.
yeah, then he had a successful NBA career.
Yes, he did. Yeah. Carter was more than serviceable backup point guard.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
and I
Those are
see
great comparisons.
where I see Bronny James' game. I think they're similar to those two players. And there's
Yeah, I
nothing wrong
mean, especially Carter, a undersized, stocky guard. Yeah.
yeah, because you see his son doing his thing. He got drafted. Anthony Carter's son.
Hmm. Yes, he
He,
did.
I mean, he's a defensive specialist, but he can, shoot,
Hmm.
and he know his role, being with the team,
Yeah.
and with Bronny, it's like, well, again, he doesn't have to be the face of the team, as long
Right.
as if he know his role on the team, then he's fine. And like you said, he's gonna have a successful career. Like I think of Robert Ory.
Well, I think, well, yeah, but I mean, yeah, Robert Ory didn't average many points, but a glue guy, knew his role, played defense, hit big shots. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's a career. The guy's got 7 rings. That's not a that's a career that
Right,
most
right,
people
right.
should want to
You
have.
can't, right? You can't shit on that career. He has
No,
7 rings.
you can't. Yeah, is he a Hall of Fame player? No,
No,
but does he hit? Did he have a fantastic career? Make a lot of money playing basketball? Absolutely.
right, and I agree with that. And that's the one thing when you talk about basketball fans who talk about that Bronny and everything like that, is you gotta look at the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is like if you can last in the league for 10, 15 years, you had a great, significant time in the league.
Oh yeah. Well, I'll close our conversation with
Go
this
ahead, bro.
because I really got to sleep. Um, most people are casual fans, and casual fans have the casual mindset where if you're not the very pinnacle, your career you're trash. Your career was garbage. Ball
Mhm.
players know if and appreciate everybody that's on that team because they know to make that 15-man roster, how good you have to be to make that 15-man roster on an NBA team. And whether you're a Brian Scalabrine, whether you're someone who's even an Anthony Bennett, who bust, but I'm sorry, Anthony Bennett is still one of the best basketball players on the planet because he was good enough to get there. Like, you don't understand what it takes to get there. So ball players appreciate those guys who, you know, didn't get a ton of burn, but they were the Randy Browns of the world, the Judd Bushlers, you
Yes.
know, guys that were, the Irvin Johnsons, not the Magic Irvin Johnsons, the Milwaukee Bucks Irvin Johnson, the
Mm,
Felton Spencers, the Blue Edwardses, like these
yes.
guys that you had to respect them because they could play, but they knew their role. They
Mhm.
did what they had to do, and they were able to have long careers. Popeye Jones,
Yes.
like I could list so many players who,
Devin Ham.
yeah, yeah, the Darvin Hams of the world, the Mike Jameses, the Carlos Arroyos,
Yes.
like guys who had long careers because they knew their role. They did what their job was. Eddie House, Dana Barrows, like the league is full of those guys. The league
Yes.
isn't full of superstars. Superstars are special. The league is full of top flight basketball players who can fit into a team scheme, know the role, go do their job. And if you can stretch that out longer than that league average of like 3.5 seasons, then you have succeeded.
Facts, facts. And to just add a little bit to this conversation is that a lot of those players that you're talking about, when you talk about international,
Mhm.
is that's the scary thing about the Olympics, is that these guys are the best players on their teams.
Yeah. Yeah,
I just want to put that out there for for people who
which is
understand
which
basketball.
harkens to my point why they're dangerous.
Yeah,
RJ Barrett's not a star; he's a upper level role player, but that makes him dangerous. He knows his role. Dylan Brooks is not a star; he knows his role. The only star really the only two stars they have are Shea and Jamal. The rest
yes,
of those guys are role players, but they're dangerous.
yes, and they played them, and they
Hmm.
know they know their tendencies.
They know their opponents absolutely.
Yes, and so when people talk about it's the upset. It's not an upset because they played them already in the NBA. Say
Yeah.
they know how they work, they know how they play, and so it's not an upset. It's like they
I mean,
know,
it's still an upset, but it's not a shock.
right?
It's not a shock. It's not like when Argentina beat us. That was a
Yes,
shock. If they lose against one of these better teams, it shouldn't be a shock because
mhm,
these countries have players.
right. And they play in the league.
Yes, they know their competition very well.
Yes, and the information that they get from playing and studying those players, they give to to their teammates. They give to their coach.
Yep.
Like for example, RJ brought.
Oh no, not even that. A lot of the coaches for these countries are coaches in the NBA. They're NBA assistant
Yes,
coaches and such. They know what. Yeah, they know these players. They know the tendencies. They know
yes,
what they're talking about. So
right. Like when you talk about Kevin Durant, like, oh yeah, he likes to go to his right to the baseline for that shot, so we can kind of
yeah, the scouting report is deep.
right. So the scouting report is in depth.
Yep.
So when you think about the U.S. team losing to a team, I wouldn't be surprised if they do lose to a team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Man, this has been a dope conversation, bro. I appreciate you. I
Absolutely.
love you, man.
I love
I
you,
know
my
you got
brother.
to do the father thing, the husband
I know.
thing.
I know. I gotta go to sleep. Thing.
Yeah.
That's what I gotta
Now,
do.
how can people follow you?
You can follow your boy Rockin' Mr. Magic. You can follow me on Facebook. Just you can search Rockin' Mr. Magic. That's the tag there. You'll find me. Also on Twitter _ Rockin' Mr. Magic. You can find Jeek Nation content. You can search JEEK Nation. You'll find our Facebook group, Twitter page, TikTok, IG, and then of course our podcast, the original Jeek podcast, which is our main show covering having just the dopest conversations combining all things sports, all things geek. Our pro wrestling show, Breaking Ring Rust. Um, we've got a live review of Netflix's Supercell coming at the end of this month. And keep your eyes focused, keep your ears and eyes focused for new podcasts. Trying to relaunch a podcast that kind of taking the reins of hopefully by the end of the year, called Dads Who Like Anime. Trying to get that back revived. It was started by my co-host Unique DNA. Trying to revive that by the end of the year and throw a third show into the Jeek Nation Podcast Network. So keep yourself peeled for that, and check us out on all those tools, YouTube as well. Give us a subscribe. Check the show out. Leave comments. Reviews. All that stuff helps. And we appreciate all the support that we get from our current listener base, and we welcome all who want to join those ranks.
Facts. And again, all those links will be in the description below. Please support what they're doing because they're doing phenomenal work. And support what we're doing here, on the
Yes,
podcast.
yes.
Like,
Support that is
subscribe,
not a
and all
now,
that,
baby. Like, subscribe, follow, share the whole nine.
and all that good stuff. And we're out. Peace.
Peace.
All right. Stay on for 1 second. I'm gonna end the
Make sure it
record.
uploads.
Yep.